am more than breast cancer.
I am more than gastric cancer.
I am more than Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 3.
I am more than Lynch syndrome.
I am more than metastatic male breast cancer.
I'm more than PMDD.
I am more than diabetes.
I am more than lupus.
I am more than FAP.
Welcome to More Than a Diagnosis. I'm Den.
And I'm Jess. This podcast is about so much more than cancer, chronic illness, or the labels we've been given. It's about reclaiming our lives, finding community, and thriving in ways we never thought possible.
Whether you're a patient, a caregiver, or just someone curious about what it means to live beyond a diagnosis, we're so glad you're here.
Have you noticed how we live in a world where everyone seems to measure their worth by how much that they can do, how productive they are? It's that rise and grind culture, the no days off, the keep pushing. It's so hard because what happens when our bodies just can't keep up with that anymore, and when rest is no longer optional, but it becomes necessary?
Yes, and so many of us living with chronic illness, cancer, or struggling with long-term recovery, the version of work we once knew, it doesn't fit anymore, but the world doesn't really make space for that. We're expected to perform the same, be at the same productivity level, show up the same way that we did before, like nothing's changed, but that's not how it works.
No, because so much has changed. I think in another episode earlier this season, we had talked about fatigue and how fatigue often gets mistaken for laziness, and that there's just a whole lot of guilt that can come with needing rest. So I think today for this episode, we're wanting to kind of zoom out and look at why that guilt exists in the first place, because it's not just internal. This is very much cultural.
Yes, I mean, hustle culture is this invisible system that tells us our worth is tied to our productivity, to our output. But what happens when our body says, nope, I just can't keep up?
Yeah, it's so true. Have you stopped to think about why we feel pressure to always do more and how that shows up for us after our diagnosis?
I mean, I feel like for me, this didn't just happen. I feel like this is something that since, growing up, it's been instilled in us, know? It's... Yeah. Saturday, it's 8 o'clock. Why are you still sleeping? We've got stuff to do. And, I don't think that our parents, I say our because I have a sibling, but I don't think they meant to harm us in any way.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it starts. And there are expectations that are, expected of us. And sometimes those expectations become our own expectations, and we adopt them, know, and so it shapes how we see our worth in regards to productivity. And
absolutely.
It sticks.
Well, we're internalizing that stuff, right? Even if they're not telling us, even if no one ever said to you, why are you still sleeping? You're being lazy. If the expectation was to get up and clean, get up, go to work, do whatever, regardless of how you feel, we begin to internalize those things, and then that becomes our inner voice, right? So that when we are older, then we're coming back to those places.
Yeah, and something as simple as I've got a really bad headache, but I need to keep pushing. That alone. Lots of those moments start adding up, and before you know it, you've built this lifestyle where you're pushing yourself through not just a headache.
Yeah.
You're pushing yourself through a whole lot more.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, if that started prior to a major diagnosis, if you were already in that frame of mind of like, I need to push through this because I need to get XYZ done, then of course that's what's going to happen after we are stuck with a diagnosis and our life has to change. I think maybe that's why there is so much resistance, because it's not only an external pressure societally, but it's this internal pressure that we've built up for years and years and years.
Yes. And it's now our compass. And that's how we're used to doing things. So if this is now our compass, it's everywhere we go. It's who we are. And that's going to dictate how we behave and what we choose to do and not do.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's almost like we're all taught that doing nothing means being nothing.
Yes. Yes. And it's never enough sometimes. And that's another aspect of life that, you know, sometimes you need to get to that point where, but it is enough. But how do we get to that? When your moral compass is push, 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 push. So by that account, push, push, push means, so when is enough? And so I feel like, you know, there's more than just one aspect of life driving that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's happened for a really long time, and maybe we didn't see it, or maybe we didn't think anything of it.
Yeah. But then we get a diagnosis, and like in your case, you were working as a nurse, putting in hours on your feet, and mental and physical and all of that. And then it's like the rug was ripped out from underneath you, and suddenly everything has to change, and you didn't have a choice. There was no, can I maybe still try to work? In your situation, there was no option but to rest and take care of yourself. And I can only imagine, having come from where you started to that happening, how that must have felt for you.
Yeah, and you know, if I go back to when I got diagnosed, and I go back to those moments where I had to get things done. And even at home, you know, I wasn't working anymore because I really literally couldn't do that anymore. But I still found myself pushing through the little things.
Yeah.
It was, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's just a little headache. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Because inside, I needed to do those things, because if I didn't, then what would that mean? What would people say? Would they understand? Would I be labeled as lazy? Would I now not be as hardworking as I've always taken pride in?
Yeah.
It's just so many things. And, you know, eventually you'll hit a rock if you keep pushing yourself. And that's, that happened.
Yeah. Sometimes more like a boulder. A wall, a brick wall.
Yeah, you know, you literally run yourself into the ground. And when that happens, it's like, okay, how did we get here?
Yeah.
How? Because these little moments that add up.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. Well, now that I look back, I'm like, oh, there was that one time.
Right? Oh, and
yeah,
that time.
One time. Oops. Oh, yeah. And you remember. I did. Yep. And so it's kind of funny that, you know, you can go back in time and say, yeah, I really pushed through so much when my body was screaming at me. But, you know, that compass needle moving was so loud that I didn't let myself hear it. And that's okay, because part of it is also forgiving yourself for not knowing what you knew then.
Yes.
And I'm throwing it in there now because I don't want to forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I know now, I didn't realize that back then.
Absolutely.
And so it's taken a lot for me to get to the point of not just understanding that my self-worth is not determined by my productivity or lack of productivity, but it's determined by what my body needs.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and and don't get me wrong, it's not super easy once you figure it out. It's still a daily choice.
Yeah.
Because those, life doesn't stop. Those appointments will keep on coming, and you have to keep assessing how you're feeling in that moment.
Yep.
And it's a challenge.
It's a challenge, and it's also a practice, right? Of giving yourself grace when you can't work, or when you have to call out of work because you're unwell, or when your body's screaming for rest. And also those moments, the little moments where you have allowed yourself to rest and lay down or sit down for a little bit to catch your breath because your body's telling you need a break. And then you hear somebody come in the room, or you hear somebody come in the house, and you feel like, oh shit, I need to jump up and start doing something so that they know that I was being productive and I wasn't just laying around all day long.
Yes.
I still find myself doing that. I feel like I have to explain, like, oh, I did this, and then I did this, and I did this before you got here, but now I'm laying down because I'm really tired. Like, why do I do that?
Right? Or you're explaining why you're laying down.
Yes.
Like, I have such a bad headache right now.
Yes.
And you're like, okay.
And I think
And
that's because
like,
we're
okay.
still like
Yes.
fighting that in our mind of needing to prove our worth and our productivity. And that is so ingrained in us that even, like you said, even when we've come so far and we've learned how to give ourselves grace and we are learning how to listen to our bodies, we're still fighting those thoughts.
Yeah. And see, the thing is also, when you come to that realization, there's a lot of grief.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much that comes with it, and in my case, I had to stop working.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't. And there's a lot of grief that came with that, not being able to work. What's interesting is now that I'm back at work, I'm grieving, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Can't catch a break. I don't want to grieve anymore. I'm done.
Yep.
I don't want to do it. And
I'm
now
tired of this, Grandpa.
Oh, yes. Literally that sound. But I find myself grieving myself, my old self. Because the nurse I was prior to getting diagnosed with everything is not the same nurse I am now physically.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill to swallow.
Sure. But hold on. Let me just throw this out there real quick before I forget. You are not physically the nurse that you were 6 years ago, but I think that you are probably a better nurse now than you were 6 years ago because of everything that you've been through. So your grief is valid, but also we can celebrate the fact that you are an incredible nurse, even more so than you were before because of your experience. Just had to throw that in there. Had to throw that in there.
Thank you. But yes, you are right. And, as humans, it's easy to get hung up on the grief and the, not so positive emotions. And it's easy to push, those feelings of, but I'm a different nurse. I'm a better nurse.
Yeah.
But it's very true. After going through so many physical changes, so much illness, both physical and mental, even if you want to be the same person, you're not.
Yeah.
And you can't be.
Yeah.
And as humans, we want the known. We want the comfortable, even if it really wasn't comfortable, because that's all we knew.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that being a nurse, I can imagine. Obviously, I can't speak to it because I'm not a nurse. But I feel like it's one of those careers that it's almost like your identity gets wrapped up in being a nurse. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
This is who I am. This is what makes me me. This is, you know, all those emotions.
Yes, because when I was not working, I struggled with my purpose. So I'm not working. That means I'm not being productive, but I'm a nurse. But right now I'm not being a nurse. But what I didn't realize is just because I wasn't working actively in a hospital as a nurse, I didn't stop being a nurse.
Yes, that part.
And I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. It was out of the hospital, no longer a nurse.
Yeah, for sure.
But girl, you still have your license.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And you're doing what you need to do to keep it active.
Exactly.
And you're keeping yourself informed. So you're still very much a nurse. And you'll always be a nurse, regardless of what you do with the rest of your life from here on out. That's always part of you.
Yeah. But if anything, I feel like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but just going through all of the illness and all of these diagnoses, it really did help me become a better nurse.
Yeah.
It's taught me so much. And as a nurse, back before I got sick, I was a good nurse. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm proud of the nurse I was.
Yeah.
But I don't think I understood what it meant to be a patient.
Yeah.
I really hadn't gotten hit with major diagnoses like I had.
Yeah.
And that rocked my world to the degree where it forces you to really look at the value of everything. What actually matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. And it does. There's no way. It throws you, illness throws you into this loop and full of questions and, you know.
Yeah. So I think sometimes what is challenging is when our worth is tied up to what we do instead of who we are. Because for me, I have had lots of different side hustles, lots of different gigs. I've had a few jobs here and there, but my main job over the last 19 years plus has been to be a full-time mom. That was my job. That was the job that I chose. That was the career that I chose, right? So that's already something that is really hard to tie worth to because you don't get a paycheck. You don't get a boss telling you you're doing a good job. Your boss is begging you for snacks and asking you when they're going to go to the park. That's what your boss is doing, right? So it's a little bit different for me, but similar in that when I got diagnosed, everything changed. My ability to show up and do my job every day looked so different than what it did prior to that. And there's so much grief that was tied up with that and where I stood as a mom and what my kids needed. And I think that is a whole other episode for another day. We've been talking about needing to do an episode on parenting, but I just wanted to throw that in there because I know that there are other folks out there who have chosen the life of being a stay-at-home parent and that is your job. And that when that is your job, taking care of yourself and caring for yourself and not pushing through, that is a whole nother level of gotta figure it out kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because when you're calling out of work, you're not going into the hospital, right? You're not going to see patients. When I'm calling out of work, I'm still here at my job. And so it looks a little different, you know?
Yeah, because you have your kids there and you can't tend to them because, well, you're so sick. But those feelings of guilt, oh man.
Yeah.
Like you're not enough. Because I think it's once again tied to the identity.
Yeah.
But just because you're not washing clothes, ironing, doing dishes, cooking, doesn't make you stop being a mom.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? You're still their mom.
Exactly.
You're not less of a mom. You're just not able to physically do all the household duties that need to get done.
Yes.
You know, and so I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
That,
there's something else too that came to my mind that I wanted to throw out there and kind of wanted to get your input on this. Have you thought about how culturally this plays a role also? Because if you come from a family who either doesn't come from much or are immigrants or they sacrifice so much for you to have the life that you have, I think that our productivity and our worth and all of that are all tied up in that too.
Oh, it sure is. My parents came here and worked not at one job, but several jobs to make ends meet. And, you know, they're working so hard, so therefore I need to work hard because they're trying to give me a better life.
Yeah.
And so whether you like it or not, it does put a little pressure on you to perform.
Well, because I'm sure that you feel like, okay, my parents went through all of this for me to be able to go to nursing school and to have the life that I have. They sacrificed so much. They gave up so much of their lives so that I could have this life that I have right now. And so I'm sure that there's a huge piece of you that has to reconcile wanting to give back to them by doing a good job.
Absolutely. Even though they never actually said that.
Yes.
They never actually pushed me. They didn't force me to do that. I did that all on my own. You know? And so I definitely want to throw that out there and make a clear distinction that at no point did my parents, did my family say, you have to, you know, graduate, go to nursing school, do this, be this.
No, you chose it.
I chose it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's so interesting how our home life, our situation drives us, you know, to put pressure on ourselves because it can't be in vain, right?
Yes. Yeah. You want to make it be worth something. But the fact that you're living and breathing in here is enough. And I think that that's the part that we have to reconcile and kind of say, regardless of what I do, who I am is what matters.
It is. And, you know, my identity isn't tied to all the things that I do or can no longer do. It's not. Bottom line, it's not. And I think a lot of it is, it's, you know, this is a difficult topic because we've talked about this in the past when patients get diagnosed, and this is a touchy subject, but I'm going to go there. When patients get diagnosed and they're on chemo, some patients are unable to work.
Yep.
They have to stay home. The side effects are so brutal that there's just no possible way that you can function at work. Whereas others, either their side effects aren't that bad or they force themselves to push through.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times it's sad because society forces us to look at that as, great, good job, you did it, you get a star. And then now somehow it's become this, well, why aren't you doing it? If I could do it, it's a badge of honor.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So wait, but I worked through that. I worked through all of that. So what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, and that leaves people like me who could not work through chemo because I could barely get out of bed, feeling like, well, then what's wrong with me because I couldn't do that.
So it's society putting pressure.
Yes.
And not just when it comes to a job.
Society is not built to support people who are chronically ill or who are going through major diagnoses. Workplaces are generally not the most kind to people who are chronically ill, and it requires us to push back and ask for the accommodations and the flexibility that we require. And that's not an easy feat to have to put yourself out there, especially if you don't really want to go to work with people knowing that you're unwell.
No, you don't want that, because then it starts creating almost a certain amount of doubt in people.
Yeah.
So will she be able to do the task? Will she be able to stay on task? And in an emergency, will she perform?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of those questions are so valid, because as a nurse, you need to bring your A game.
Of course.
Every single day.
Of course. But also at the same time, you know your body, and you're the only one who knows if you are capable of that. And because you're a good nurse, you wouldn't go to work if you couldn't do those things. But society might see you as a chronically ill individual and think that you're going to be less of a nurse and not be able to provide those things if they knew that you were chronically ill.
Yeah. I mean, chronic illness changes you. Whether you like it or not. And I was that person who would push through and would not call out.
Yeah.
I'd make myself go in because I don't, want to let my patients down. I don't want to let my coworkers down. What if they can't get a replacement? You know, you just care, and you don't want to let people down.
Sure.
And, you know, when you're sick and you're forced to, you're like, well, it is what it is. Now, things have changed.
Yeah.
I call out now.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling well. My body's telling me, stay home. And it was really hard, because even though I have chronic illness and got back to work, there's been quite a few instances where I've had to already call out. And that was a whole production, because I had, you know, these feelings towards it, and I had to check myself. And thankfully I got to the place where I said, what do I need?
Yes. Yes.
My body needs rest. I feel really sick. Can I push through? Maybe, but should I?
Well, because if you push through, then that will most likely just end up you having to call out of work even longer, because you didn't, instead of just taking one day off to rest, recoup, you know, get to a decent place where you can show up. If you push through too many times, then you may end up calling out for 3 weeks in a row because your body's like, nope, I've had it.
But see, it takes time to get to that place.
Yes.
Where you understand it. Because a lot of this requires giving ourselves grace.
Yep.
And it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Especially when you've got these feelings attached to productivity that you're fighting.
Yep.
It just...
Yep. I think, you know, it's about self-love. Yes, it's about asking yourself, what does my body need? Yes, it is about resting when you need to rest, but also it's about not trying to please everybody else. It's about not trying to prove that you can do something for yourself or for other people. It's not about wearing that badge of honor to say, well, look at me, I did it. Because if at the end of that, you're the one who's paying the price, we have to recognize nobody else is paying that price.
No.
And nobody else is going to make it better but you.
Because bottom line, no one will take care of you other than yourself.
Absolutely.
We're the only guarantee.
Yes.
Because if we don't, it is not guaranteed that someone else will.
No, and
Now,
even
granted, we have friends
if,
and family.
yes, yes.
But still.
Even if we have the most supportive people in our lives, they cannot rest for us.
Nope.
They cannot hydrate for us. They can bring us the glass of water, but they cannot force us to drink.
You do know whom I'm saying. I'm constantly saying this. You can take the horse to the water, but you can't make that horse drink.
Exactly. So the same goes for how we look at our productivity and how we show up and how we navigate going back to work and putting ourselves back in those positions. Just because you've received a major medical diagnosis does not necessarily mean that you'll never be able to go back to work. I mean, people need to look at you as the shining example of this bitch was out of work for 6 years. 6 years on disability and out of work. And you went back to work. People don't generally do that.
No.
So if you're at a place where you're like, I really want to go back to work, but I don't know if I can, give yourself grace, because when your time comes, you'll know that the time is right. But also, if you do take that step to go back to work, recognize that it's okay if it doesn't look the same. It's okay if things need to change. It's okay if you need to ask for accommodations. And it's also okay if you go back and then you decide, yeah, no, I thought I could do that, but I think this is not for me. And maybe it needs to be something else.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, things are very different now. The nurse who didn't hydrate, well, that nurse doesn't really have a choice now because, well, her body will collapse.
Yeah, can't have that.
We cannot have that.
No.
And so it's interesting that now I have a different outlook. It's not just me taking care of my patients differently, because now I feel like I can see illness through a different lens and be more understanding and a whole lot more empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also learning that I can take care of my patients as well as myself during a shift.
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize just how badly I was at taking care of myself at work until now that I've returned. Because old habits, regardless of how much time has elapsed, those habits are there.
Old habits die hard.
Yep, you put that nurse back in that environment and
Yep, it's like riding a bike.
Right, and so I've really had to check myself.
Yeah.
And say, no, you need to, that water bottle that's staring at you, grab it and take a few sips because you're sweating, running around sweating, and so it's a lot of rewiring and a lot of grace, because it's not perfect science. It changes constantly, and we're human.
Yep.
And all we can really do is our very best.
Yeah.
And that has to be enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if fatigue isn't laziness, was about giving yourself permission to rest, this one is about unlearning the system that made you feel guilty for it in the first place.
Because rest is not rebellion, it's resistance. It's how we reclaim our bodies, our time, and our peace.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're out there and you're feeling like you're falling behind, please know that you're not. You're just moving at the pace that your body is asking for. And that is something worth honoring.
Yes. So let's just keep rewriting what enough means together.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on More Than a Diagnosis. We hope today's conversation left you feeling seen, heard, and maybe even a little more connected.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need it.
And if you're looking for a place to connect with others who truly get it, join our support circle at morethanadiagnosis.org, where we will continue this conversation. It's free, it's welcoming, and it's built for you.
Because no one should have to navigate this alone.
Until next time,
keep living, keep growing, and remember,
you are more than a diagnosis.